Hi students, welcome to the first Writer's Workshop for English 2. So what I want to do first is go over the prompt. So if you're seeing this, you probably also can hopefully see the prompt. I'm going to just read over it. It says essay overview. So it says in this essay, you will take a close look at one of the short stories in Literature and its Writers. So again, if you have the book, then that's great. And you can use actually any of the stories in that book. So if you do have the book and you want to do a story that we haven't read or we haven't read yet, totally fine with me. If you don't have the book and you're just accessing the stories online via Google, totally fine. Then I would just use the stories. It does have to be from Literature and its Writers because I'm looking for a certain format. So then if that's the case and you don't have the book, no problem. Just go with any of them that are on the syllabus, whether we have gotten to them or we haven't gotten to them yet, all right? So, but only a short story. We're in the short story section, so we're not going to do a poem yet or a play. So it does need to be a short story. All right, so it says you will select your short story and then you will look at the short story through the lens of a particular context. Your choices of context could be psychological, mythological, historical, sociological, feminism, or gender studies. I'm open to another lens, but it does need to be a particular focus like that. All right. So, but those are some good ones to get you started, I think. Please, okay, so it says please refer to the section Literature and its Writers for more specific information about these forms. I was going to say this form of literary criticism, and then it has an S, so it should be either this form or these forms. Sorry for the typo. But so there is a section on that if you have the book. But basically, you are just going to pick a way to look at the story, and you are going to keep that tight focus. So if you don't have the book to read that section, that is not an issue. All right, so you must have one central idea about the story, which will be reflected in your thesis statement. So, for example, you're not going to pick all of those. You're not going to look at through a feminism lens and a sociological lens and historical, and and then it's just going to be all over the place. So you need to pick one way that you're looking at it, and then you need one clear idea about the story. And we'll go over this in the writer's workshop. Okay, so it says next, in addition, you must use textual evidence to prove your idea to the reader, meaning you need evidence from the text. You need quotes from the story. That is what proves your idea. It has to be based on the story. It has to be proven with evidence from the story, and you must quote from the story. You cannot do this paper without quoting from the story, and so you have to cite too. So we'll get into that, but first things first. So it says this evidence should support your thesis statement in your introduction and should also support your topic sentences in each body paragraph. You must use evidence in the story in each body paragraph to support your idea. In addition to evidence from the story, you may use outside sources to support your idea. In fact, you should use outside sources to support your idea. Really, you need, for each paper, you really do need to use outside sources. Sources 3 is what you should be using. All right. These sources should be college-level academic sources, such as those accessed in the Solano College Library databases that you learned about when you took English 1, LR10, right? So those are all there. You can also use Google Scholar is another way to go about it. You can try Google, but the regular Google, but sometimes you can have some good luck with that actually and end up with some good sources, but you should be using college sources. So if you're using like just some online review of a book that's just random people reviewing it, or something that's more about like studynotes.com and things like that, those aren't college sources. Those don't belong in your paper, all right? All right, so then if when in doubt, ask. All right, and when in doubt, stick with the databases, and then you should be fine. All right, so and then it says you must cite your sources parenthetically and in a works cited. So never mind, even if you do not use outside sources, you need to use outside sources, right? But you have to quote the story too, and so you have to cite the story as well. So you can cross that part out. You do need outside sources. All right. So you have to use your best evidence for the idea. So that's where you have to know the story, right? So you have to have read the story. I would read the story once to get a sense of it. I would read the story again to know it better. And then I would read it a third time and make notes. You should really know the story. If you're saying that it ends one way and it doesn't end that way, that's not good. so you really need to know the story. All right, in order to start thinking of your thesis, you might start with a question. Maybe you have a question about the story, and that can really start you to, formulate your idea. So it might start with a question such as, here's some ways to get started, right? You might start with a question about the story such as, in what ways does the setting of the South have an effect on William Faulkner's short story, A Rose for Emily? So that would be setting, right? You could look at through that lens. That could also segue into perhaps historical for that time and place, right? So maybe that would be it. So your idea about that question could then turn into your thesis statement. So again, the question is not your thesis. Your thesis statement must be a statement that ends in a period. But as part of the process of developing your thesis, you might want to start with a question. All right, so then it says, all right, so A Rose for Emily, setting the South, earliest 20th century. Okay, here's the example of a thesis. So it says, for example, in William Faulkner's classic short story, A Rose for Emily, the setting of the South in the early 20th century allows readers to experience the ways that this rigid class-focused society exerted a social hierarchy that oppressed even those in its highest rungs to lives of paralyzing conformity. So that was written by me, right? So you can't have that thesis statement, but I just wanted to give it to you as an example, right? So then all my evidence in the text would have to, in my paper, would have to support this idea that the South at that time and place had a was very rigid in its class and very class focused, and that it kept people kind of hemmed in to their roles, and that this affected not just those who were clearly being oppressed, but it affected even those who you would think wouldn't be, who were more seemed to be doing better, right? That they were also dramatically and traumatically really affected by this class system. All right, so I would show evidence in there of that. All right, so that's an example. It says you may choose to use any of the short stories in the reader. Again, making that point, even if the story was not assigned reading in class. However, no stories outside of literature and its writers will be accepted as an essay focus. Clearly, if they are from the syllabus, but you have accessed them online, that's fine. So I don't mean that. But just nothing else that's either not on the syllabus or not in literature and its writers, because then we just end up with, my friend wrote a short story. I think it's great. Well, that's cool, but and encourage them to keep writing, right? But that's not what we're doing right now, because we're focusing on really classic literature in this format. All right. Okay, so it says, in addition to a thesis, topic sentences, and textual evidence, you must use literary analysis. Your ideas supporting your thesis, right, are going to be really important here. Your detailed thoughts, ideas, and the connection between your ideas and evidence, that's your analysis. They're your detailed thoughts and ideas about the connection between your ideas and your evidence. It's the glue. Your analysis is the glue that makes that connection. All right, so then it says essay structure. You must use standard essay structure. This is a college paper, so any essay structure you've learned about before in English 1 or even previous classes, previous to that, it's all still in place. You must use essay structure with a clear introduction and a clear thesis statement. Because you are writing about literature, in the introduction, you must briefly summarize the story for the reader. The reader should not have to have read the story. Any random person that speaks English should be able to read your paper And they should be able to, even if they did not read the story, they should be able to read it and make sense of your paper. It will likely make them want to read the story, right? So you need to give a summary of the story, a brief summary, particularly as it pertains to your main point, to your thesis, all right? So you don't need blow by blow details, right? It's only like your introduction should be at most half a page, like quarter of a page to half a page, right? So nothing, that's going to be going on for pages. You're not rewriting the story, right? So you're just giving a brief overview as it pertains to your idea. All right, so then it says that you also must give the full title of the story. Don't assume that the reader knows the title of the story. You must give the full title of the story and the author's full name, their full name. All right, on first reference, you give their full name. On second and subsequent reference, you would give their last name, not their first name. So if you are writing About a Rose for Emily by William Faulkner, you're not going to call him William. So then William said this afterwards, and then when William said this, that's a little too informal. Faulkner is what you're going to refer to him as, all right? Okay, and so then it says, in the intro, you should then transition to your idea about the story and present your thesis statement. Each body of the essay should include a topic sentence, your main idea for the paragraph, which supports your thesis. So basically you have your thesis statement, and then you need 3 reasons or 3 categories or 3 smaller ideas that support that thesis. Each reason gets a body paragraph, or each smaller idea gets a body paragraph, or each category gets a body paragraph. We'll go through that more in the workshop coming up. Okay, so then it says, in subsequent, I said that. You also, in the body paragraphs, have to have textual evidence from the text. You must quote from the story. You cannot write this paper without quoting from the story. Well, you can, it just won't go well for you. So quote from the story, all right? Textual evidence, that's quoting from the story, and analysis. The topic sentence will be a smaller idea that supports the big idea of your thesis. It could be an aspect of the larger idea or a reason for the big idea. So here's an example. For instance, if your thesis statement for Jack London's story To Build a Fire is this, and this is again an example by me. So in Jack London's story To Build a Fire, through the character of the man, readers learn the tragic ramifications to humans of ignoring nature. All right? Tragic ramifications, right? So for that thesis, one possible topic sentence could be finally would be the last body paragraph. By ignoring the lessons of the natural environment, humans could bring about our own destruction. Whoa, right? That sounds good. But that's an idea, right? So basically with that thesis, you would be looking for 3 ways that would be tragic ramifications of ignoring nature, right? The last one is, because I said finally, would be bringing about our own destruction, right? The destruction of the planet by ignoring nature, right? But you can have other ways. So you would have 2 other ways first in the other body paragraph. All right, your essay must have a clear conclusion in which you touch back on your thesis, provide closure, and in which you do not bring up any new points or information. Again, it is essential that you have one big idea, your thesis, that governs and focuses your entire discussion of the essay. Your essay is not a report on the story. It's an essay with a thesis and analysis and evidence. So it's not just, to build a fire is a story that was written in 18, whatever, and it was written by Jack London, and Jack London was an author, and he was born at this time, and, he did this, and then the character did this, and there was this dog, and, no. So that's a report, right? But that is not what you're here for. You're here to write an essay. All right. So again, it is essential that, I said that you've got a thesis statement. Your essay is not a report on the story or the author, right? It's your well-argued analysis of the work. Format. The essay should be and must be typed, has to be typed. Any handwritten papers you're getting it back, and it's a 0, and you can redo it, but it's going to put you behind. So um, you've got to type it. This is college. All right, so 12-point font is what you need. And you need 3 to 5 pages in length. Not too bad, really. They could be longer, right? So I was considering 5 to 7, but 3 to 5 is fine. It must be MLA style. You must cite all sources, including the story, both parenthetically and in a works cited. You must also use correct grammar and sentence structure because this is an English class, so that would be the right thing to do there. All right. So what I'm going to do for the workshop, I'm going to pick one of the stories as an example. I'm going to do it. If we were here in person, I would get your input. We would vote. We're not able to do that right yet at this time. So what I'm going to do is take each of the stories and I'm numbering them. I have my dice. Is actually technically one is a die. So just to be clear, correct word usage, right? So we're going to pick one that way, and then we will pick an idea, and we'll roll with this workshop. All right. So of all the stories that we've read so far, I'm only doing the ones that we have been assigned so far, not anything that's assigned after up to this time. So just for the beginning, but you personally could do one of the stories that has not been assigned as yet for yours if you would like, just to be clear again. So we have A Rose for Emily by William Faulkner. That's number 1. Sorry, I'm hiding out of the camera here. We've got Jack London's To Build a Fire, which is number 2. Young Goodman Brown is number 3. Bartleby the Scrivener, number 4. Sweat by Zora Neale Hurston, number 5. The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, number 6. How to Become a Writer by... Okay, wait, I've only got 1. So 6. Fine. We're going to break it down into 2. So those are the first 6, and then we'll break it down with Lori Moore for How to Become a Writer, The Things They Carry by Tim O'Brien, and A Good Man is Hard to Find by Flannery O'Connor. I didn't do Good Country People yet by Flannery O'Connor because I felt like with doing the writer's workshop you had more than enough to do, and I could just shift that to the following week. So all right, so here we go. I'm going to go through the first 6 and we'll see what it is. Here we go. I'm rolling. It is a 4. All right, so 4 is To Build a Fire is 2. Young Goodman Brown was 3. Bartleby the Scrivener is number 4. But now Bartleby gets to compete with How to Become a Writer, The Things They Carried, and A Good Man is Hard to Find. So those are 1, 2, and 3, and then we'll have a little dice off between those guys. All right, so How to Become a Writer is number 1. Things They Carried, number 2. And A Good Man is Hard to Find, number 3. Here we go. Number 4 is none of those, so roll again. Number 2, which is The Things They Carried. All right, so now we're going to switch, and now it is a battle of the dice between, isn't this exciting? All right, I'm easily amused perhaps, or I need to get out more, one of the two. Anyway, all right, so we've got now, so Bartleby the Scrivener or The Things They Carried. So it's going to be 1 for Bartleby the Scrivener, 2 The Things They Carried. Otherwise, we have to roll again. All right, so I'm going to write this down. I'm going to focus on the wrong numbers. Okay, 1 or 2. Bartleby or The Things They Carried. 4, roll again. We've got to need a 1 or a 2. 4, 1. Okay, so it is Bartleby the Scrivener. We're talking about Bartleby the Scrivener. All right, by Herman Melville. All right, so that is the story I'm going to work with on the writer's workshop. I'm going to use that story to focus on, give examples of, to formulate an idea for. That does not mean that you have to focus on only Bartleby the Scrivener. No, you can focus on any of the stories. If you want to focus on Bartleby the Scrivener, that's fine, totally fine, but you can't use the same thesis statement that I'm doing or the same topic sentences. It would need to be your original wording, of course, right? Just to be clear. All right, so, and you don't have to roll dice. I just think that's kind of fun. And, you know, if we were in person, I'd be getting your ideas in a different sort of exchange. All right, so Bartleby the Scrivener by Herman Melville. So now what we're going to do is we are going to generate some ideas that someone could write about Bartleby the Scrivener. So I'm going to jot some of these down, and then we'll roll some dice again. All right. So Bartleby the Scrivener by Herman Melville. Actually, before I do that, I would like to tell you a little bit about Herman Melville and just give you a little background that may help you to understand the story better. All right, so I'm going to do that just for your enhanced understanding.